Hey, Annissa Coy here with Firehouse Education and this week's Ask Annissa video column. And this week I am super excited to have a special guest here with me. Jean Easter has agreed to be on Ask Annissa with me this week and do an interview and share with us her expertise. Jean and I have actually never met in person before. She reached out to me after watching my videos that I put out on R&R Magazine. And she does some amazing, incredible work when it comes to artwork and many other things actually that I'm going to have her talk with you about. And when she reached out to me and shared a little bit about her expertise, I decided to ask her if she would come on the column with me and let me ask some questions and be able to give all of you restorers out there some really amazing pointers and information. So thank you so much for being on with me here this morning. I know you're back on the East Coast, or?
Yes, well, in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, got it, got it. Okay, so thank you for taking time out of your day. Jean, you know, it's funny that we haven't ever come across and met before because Jean is really an amazing lady in the industry. And I'm just going to read this right from her bio because it came off really great on her website. Jean has actually been a professional associate in AIC since 1998 and has worked with the Indianapolis Museum of Art from 1989 until 2001. And during that time, she actually received a grant to turn the Indianapolis Art Council to study period English picture frames, which I find so fascinating, at the National Portrait Gallery in London. And in 2004, she was awarded a grant from AIC to study French furniture making techniques in France. And in addition, she was selected to go to Cuba with AIC in 2010 to assess conservation methods. So, wow, we have quite an expert here with us today, you guys. So thank you again, Jean, for taking time out here to be with us. You actually own your own business there in Indianapolis. Will you tell us a little bit about your business, how long it's been there, and maybe what your website is?
Sure. I started my business in 2001. I left the Indianapolis Museum of Art, and we have kind of expanded. My expertise is in frame conservation and furniture. My business, however, we do paintings, we do prints. We also do objects such as glass and ceramics. Ooh. I have to tell you, there's probably not a lot that we don't do. We will take textiles in and we will turn them over to a specialist for cleaning. We do a lot of different types of material cleaning. And we also do general matting and framing. And all of our matting and framing is archival. We use UV glass, we use acid-free materials. We do Japanese paper and wheat starch hinges. And we also clean prints. So we kind of do, you know, a little bit of everything. And we also do work with about 4 restoration companies here in Indianapolis. When a crisis hits, a few years ago, there were a lot of freezing. Winter was very cold. A lot of freezing happened. Pipes broke. So a lot of things got water damaged. We also have fires, which if you have a fire, you usually have water damage as well. Right. So we have done a lot of that as well.
Nice, nice. And I was actually looking on your website before we did this call, and some of the work, the before and after pictures are incredible. There was even a fan, you know, an actual fan.
Right, from China.
Yes. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm definitely going to put links below the video, you guys, to Jean's website for her company. You are going to want to have her information and keep it in your arsenal. You know, I always tell you guys about having your Rolodex of specialists, if you will, to handle those things like, you know, your art people, your jewelry people, the grandfather clocks, taxidermists in the Pacific Northwest. We have a ton of what we call horns and hides. So having someone like Jean on your Rolodex is powerful, and you can send things to her, and she has quite a variety of what you know, she actually does work on, which I think is wonderful. So what I've done is I got a few questions together that a lot of people ask me about. So what I've done is I've kind of put together just a few questions, Jean, that I want to ask you. We'll kind of go from there. So one of the questions that I had for you was, when you first reached out to me, you talked about, being careful in a restoration contractor actually causing more damage in a situation.
Right.
So one of the things I wanted to have you share with everybody was, what everyday factors play a role in causing damage to a piece of art? Like, we know window coverings, we have, just the air, the sunshine.
Right.
Like, what are some everyday factors for a restoration contractor to maybe look at in a home that we're in and dealing with that could give us a big clue that, hey, there might be some, real serious concerns here?
Okay. One of the things that we tell people is, you tell people this, but it's very hard for some people to follow through. Don't hang art on an outside wall because of the temperature and humidity fluctuation. That is where you're going to have the greatest fluctuation if you don't have a home that is humidity and temperature controlled. And most people don't. The other thing is UV. UV comes from everything. It comes from the lights that you have on overhead. It comes from the lights that you have on your lamps, everything, sunlight. Don't hang things in direct sunlight unless you have windows that have a film of UV over them. And a lot of people probably don't have that as well. The other thing is improper art handling. When you clean something, if you have a print and it has glass over it and you want to spray the Windex on it, which you probably should not be using Windex. Now, there's two other products that I would recommend. You want to not do that. If you want to clean the glass, spray it on the cloth, then clean it, so you don't get that on the frame. If your frame is gilded, that material that you're using to clean the glass is going to take off your gold. It just improper handling. The other thing I tell people, and this is just general information, when you hang something, always use 2 hooks, because if you use 1 hook, the probability of it coming off or even just slanting and then falling off is great. And I always tell people with paintings, put a backboard on it. I can't tell you how many times a painting has come in because it has fallen off the wall, fallen backwards, and it gets punctured. The other thing that I might suggest also, get rid of those little eye hooks that you put the wires on, and always use D-rings. Those eye hooks keep us in business because they become loose, and then they want to the frame just wants to spring off the wall, and you're done.
Well,
So those are just some general things.
that's awesome. And any of you watching this who have taken my class, you know that I say exactly that. Don't ever spray your cleaning product for the glass on the glass. You do one of 2 things. Just as Jean said, you spray the cloth, then you wipe. If you're going to leave the, frame and everything together, oftentimes we take frames apart. But again, the caveat is, if it's a high-end art piece, I'm dealing with somebody like Jean, and I'm not taking anything apart. I'm not doing anything. I'm packaging it so that I can get it to her. Now, That's actually kind of my next question for you. And by the way, we're going to go hold back to that Windex comment because I'm dying to know what you are going to say. But so let's say I have this piece of art, and I know that it is something that needs to go to, say, someone like you. Right. And I've got soot, it's covered. Let's say it's, whether it's covered in glass or not, but it's got soot all over it.
Okay.
What do you recommend that I do as a restoration contractor to triage, if anything, that piece prior to packaging it up and sending it to you? Because if I just leave that on there and then I ship it to you, is that worse because it has longer dwell time? Like, what would you tell me in that?
What I would say probably is, if you could take the piece, if you want to brush down the frame, but I would say do not do anything to the surface of the painting. I would say wrap it in glassine, bubble wrap, really secure it, ship it to me, or take it to a conservator where it can be cleaned. Because what you don't want to do is, you don't want to start getting any kind of moisture on that surface that's then going to start rubbing that soot in, because soot is very difficult to remove. We have proprietary solutions that we make specifically for that. And if you don't use the right thing, what you're doing is you're rubbing it right into the surface of the painting. And that's what you don't want to do.
Right. So like a gilded frame, Jean, and I've got soot all over it. Would you tell me to do anything to?
Probably if it's real gold, I would not. we make solutions of triammonium citrate. And again, if you bring it to a pH of 7, but if you don't have a litmus paper, if you don't, you know what I mean? If you don't have the right kind of amount, then it becomes a problem. And then if you do that and you start cleaning off the paint or the frame, you're going to start removing the gold. And that's something that you don't want to do, because if it's a good frame and it's in good condition otherwise, once you start removing that gold, it becomes a whole can of worms. I mean, and that's what we do every day, restoring paintings like that with frames that are gilded. You don't want to get into that, because now it just becomes, you're compounding your damage.
So you said brushing off. What would you recommend that we use to brush something like that off?
You can use those. They're like a pounce. You can use a pounce to go over it, like the outer edges, so that you can handle it. And I would recommend handling it with gloves for 2 reasons. You don't want to get that on your skin, number one. And also you're not going to be digging into the frame itself. You're not going to be digging into the gold. You're not going to leave any impression on it. You could go around it with that, I would say, or a soft cloth, or you may, I would recommend using no moisture, because moisture is going to take off gold leaf, and that's what you don't want to do. Now, if your frame is not gold, if it's metal leaf, that's a different situation. You probably could go over it with a tack cloth. And you can make your own tack cloth by taking cotton and spraying it with some water and then spraying it with some alcohol. You can make a nice tack cloth like that, because if you don't know if it's an oil painting or an acrylic painting, you may not want to go and touch it. There's different, we know usually when things are oil or acrylic, but we always test them first. We always test them in a small corner where we know, okay, this is going to remove paint. This is going to crust, you don't know what it's going to do.
Right.
So that's why
when you say soft cloth, are you, does it have to be a white cotton cloth? Can it be microfiber? And do you know anything about chem sponges or dry cleaning sponges that we use in our industry? And how do you feel about that?
So you can use those. You can use those to
Perfect.
Just kind of, you're not going yes. Right. You're not going to get a completely 100% clean, but it will be, at least it won't be, black. You're not going to deal with black. So yeah, I would say you could use those.
Okay. So you guys, for those of you that may not know, what we're talking about is dry. We call them, in this industry, we call them chem sponge. They're dry cleaning sponges is what they're known as well. And remember, I just want to say this as a caveat. And again, any of you who've had my training know this, you don't rub and scrub with a chem sponge. It's light strokes, and you either go, side to side, up and down, but it's light strokes. And what we're talking about is triaging and pulling off, some of that initial soot, so that we can then package this product up and either ship it or take it to a conservationist like Jean to be able to handle the actual restoration of this item. So here's another super important question, Jean, that I think is really important for everybody. What are some things? I mean, I know I have my things that I teach, and so I'm hoping they fall in line with what you say here, but what kind of pointers, maybe just 3 or 4 things that you could tell a restoration contractor that would help give us a clue, since we're not an expert on high-end art necessarily, that's out there and has a piece of art on a job? Like, what are some things we could look for that would tell us, wait a minute, I think that might be a high-end item, or that's an item that maybe is a little bit more expensive because of A, B, and C. What would you tell us to look for?
I would look for a signature on a painting. And not always, I've signed my own paintings, and my God, they're worth nothing. A signature, a date. If it's a print, I would look for also, again, a signature and an edition mark. It's like, if it's 1 out of 50 or something like that. Child's art, believe it or not, that means a lot to people, and it may not have a high dollar value, but those are sentimental, and those are the types of things that you can't put a dollar value on. Anything that, it's hard to say, because as a conservator, we are not allowed to determine value because it's a conflict of interest. Anything that comes to me, regardless of whether I really know that it's, a dollar value or not, high end, I have to treat in the same way. However, there are certain things like if it's an oil painting or an acrylic painting, that's a one of. That is an original, regardless of who did it. Now, the person who owns it probably has given it some value if they framed it. And if the client will tell you, look, I have a rider on my homeowner's insurance and these things are covered by it. That is number one. If the adjuster, the claims adjuster, has gone in and valued it because they have done the research, that's another thing. If the family has gone in and has had it appraised, that's another way of knowing. And those are just some of the things that, some people will have a rider on their homeowners, which they should, and that covers it. Right. So those are the kinds of things that I look for. And basically, you know what, after working in them, you kind of know but you kind of have to be a little bit, you have to be sensitive to the owners, what they like to.
Well, so. I feel really good right now because that's pretty much what I've been saying. So yay, I'm glad because I definitely get, I'm not, you guys, I'm not an art per se expert. Do I know quite a bit about it from my years of handling it? Yes. And like I said in the beginning of this video, I also know, most importantly, when I need to take it to somebody like Jean. Okay. I'm not a conservationist. So I know when I need to say, hey, wait a second, I need somebody here that has this specific talent, because in content restoration, especially, you guys, I've never found anybody that's an expert in every single thing. Like, to have expertise, now, am I an expert? I do feel like I'm an expert in my field because I've been doing this so long. But I have a lot of other experts behind me that I know that I can pull in when I need specific help. Okay. On something, or someone who's handled a situation more often than me. So that's pretty much what I tell people to look for as far as value. And I absolutely love that you mentioned and would stress that obviously something that is child's art or family member art, absolutely, that is priceless. And I've dealt with a lot of that in my 20 years of doing this, that you just cannot put a price tag on. Right. On those items. One of the things that I know that I also tell people when, trying to determine a value on things is if there's a piece of artwork and the back of it is wrapped in acid-free paper, that's usually kind of true to me. Number one, the homeowner values it. They don't do it for just a piece, that they picked up at a yard sale or something. Right. So that's a big thing. The other thing is, you guys, if you're going to do this kind of work, do a little bit of research, know frames, know a little bit about frames and what, even an inexpensive frame that you take to, let's say, in our area, Hobby Lobby is a huge craft thing. I'm not sure about where you're at, but an inexpensive frame there. I went and had just a poster frame that I loved, and it cost me like $170. So again, not high end per se. There are frames that can cost a lot more than that. Right. But if you see a very high detailed, heavy wooden frame that's on a piece of art, if it's a print and it has glass on the front of it, that tells me, okay, wait a second too. And just like Jean said earlier, if you see it on a wire and 2 hooks or 2 brads instead of just a single, nail, that also tells me a little bit of something about the value of potentially of the painting, and bare minimum, the value to my client, the homeowner. Right.